let's have a look and review Godox MF12 Macro Flash. This is ArtIsRight. Before we start, subscribe if you're new and hit on the bell icon so you'll be notified every time I upload cool new videos like this. Godox sent me this MF12 Macro Flash 2 light kit for me to do a review. And so far, I really love what this flash can really do and perform. And it definitely solves a problem that I have when I try to do macro photography work and also other things too, where it's actually much better to use these flash specifically for macro work rather than on-camera flash or any other flash, because these can get really close right up to the subject. And I'm going to talk about that in just a sec here. But this is a 2 light kit, so let's talk about what comes in the kit, which you are going to get most of the things that you're going to need to get this working. If you have been working with Godox system before and you have their trigger already or you have an on-camera flash, you're going to be perfectly fine there because you can use this trigger or the on-camera flash to trigger these flashes. But if you don't have that, the one thing you're going to need is an on-camera trigger like the one that I have here. This is X Pro. So it's just something to think about there if you're getting this kit. If you haven't used Godox before, you want to add, at least a trigger in there so that you can fire these flashes. It comes with a nice pouch that you can see here, and in the pouch itself, it comes with a few things. For example, it comes with this cold shoe kit thing, which is pretty much allows you to set the flash independently. And the way how these flash would mount in a cold shoe is done by this adapter here. So you would have to screw that in and you can mount the flash like I have here on my table. Little manual lens cloth. The other thing too is that it also comes with the color gel that you may want to use on your flash. So you can have different lighting effect pretty much directly on the flash itself, which is cool. Now, the other thing too is that this kit also comes with all the speed rings, and the way how the speed ring mounts onto the camera is done by, a screw thread that screws into your lens. Godox ships with all these parts in this kit, so it starts at 49mm and it goes up to 77. The one that I have here, link up to the speed ring, this is a 77mm one, and you would simply do this when you get the first time. You would take the filter thread, you will line it up here, and this just pretty much snaps in. So far, there hasn't been anything where it's loose. I mean, I took this on and off a few times. It works really well. It stays on really tightly. This works great. On the rings itself, there's a part there that has an arrow, and you can squeeze this down. So what you would do in this situation is that these on the flash kind of move and pivots. And there's also the 2 release lock on the side to allow you to lock the flash into a specific location on this ring, which is great. So what you would do to mount them is literally just hold this down and just slide it in, and now it's pretty much locked in place. If I want to move this around, I press the side there, and now it's pretty much locked in place. So this is pretty cool and is a really neat way of using this flash, and I can just pull it out by just doing that, compressing a ring and pulling it out. Now this ring goes on the front of the lens by just screwing into the filtered thread as you see here, and you just mount the flash on top. So let's just focus on the flash itself now that we have a moment to kind of look at different things. It has a TTL mode, and the other thing that I mentioned about this flash is that it has a USB charger on the side, or USB Type-C, and that is because the flash itself does not have a removable battery. So far in using Godox Flash and playing with their products, they have built pretty good batteries inside here, so I'm not worried too much about it. And also at the price point that these products ship at, I mean, I don't think battery is going to be so much of an issue when you're using these macro flash. So that's pretty much the way how you would charge the device up. Again, like I said, you can put in a different cover on here to change the way how the characteristic of the glass work. And on the device itself, well, there's pretty much not anything else on the other side beside the fact that you can change the angle like so. But then what you have is the LCD screen and all the controls. This one uses a new Godox control where if you accidentally press this and power it on, it asks you to turn the wheel to confirm your intention. If you don't, well, it just turns off, which helps you conserve battery if it gets hit in the bag accidentally. This is a really great thing to have. So I'll turn this on and rotate the wheel. So with these, they're compatible with Godox system. And the nice thing about having an on-camera trigger like this is that I can trigger these macro flash, but I can also use, for example, this in conjunction with a larger Godox lighting system. For example, I can use their 200 flash or their 600 flash to pretty much like power the background. If I ever want to do that, I can just using this controller. So you're not really just limited to their small flash. You can have this commander control the entire range of Godox products that you have, so you can be extremely creative with this whole process. Now, beyond this, what's really cool about this is that they have an organic LED display, which is good. It tells you the information, tells you the battery information, the wireless channel you're on, and just pretty much the mode that you're in. So primarily there's two modes, there's TTL and manual. So far in my testing, TTL, even with TTL -3, it has a tendency to overexpose many of the shots that I've taken. And it could be the fact that I'm using a mirrorless Nikon Z because it's a lot easier to focus on this camera. And that's the reason why I'm using that. And these mirrorless camera does not really have good TTL, and that could be the reason why. But when I set this mode into manual, I have no problem whatsoever. Now, the other thing really great about these lights too is that it also has a modeling light. And this is really fantastic for macro photography because a lot of times, well, guess what? You're in a dark situation, or because you're doing macro photography, you do lose light coming into the camera, and these light definitely does help. This is at the 10th level right now, so you can just turn it off, turn it on, and I'll hold that down. And you can control 10 different lighting steps for this one, so you don't have to use it at 10 all the time. And you just simply turn it off by just pressing on it again. The menu system, like with all Godox system, it's extremely easy to use, so it has a different mode. Whether you want to trigger the flash differently, the wireless mode is on right now. The group to channel, and it has a new feature called ID, which you can do from like 1 to 99, and you can set the standby time as you see right now. So I'll turn this flash off for the time being. And like I said, you have this arm that can articulate and move. So if you mount this on in front of the camera, well, let's do that right now. So if you mount this onto the camera, you don't have to have this point directly like so. You can just literally move it and angle it as close to your subject as you want, or you can angle it away and bounce it onto something. I know for those of you that does professional macro photography, you guys have like cloth or like another diffusion panel beyond this, but so far I'm using these through raw flashes, and I really like the performance and what it can do. So for me, this really satisfies my creative needs. Now, let's talk about some of the things that having these smaller macro flash solves the problem for me. So number one, I am a wedding and events photographer, and a lot of times at weddings, I would do close-up of the rings. Well, having these flash that are light enough to put in front of my camera and just small enough to throw in a bag without having to worry about carrying an extra bag just for this equipment is fantastic, because this allows me to get right in front of rings and I can light the diamond in a very different way. For instance, what I can do here is have one flash here on group A, like so, and I can have the other one here on group B, and I can control the ratio of lighting differently. If I just have an on-camera flash, because at a wedding we generally move really fast, right? Because a lot of things are happening. If I have just the on-camera flash as an ancillary light, well, a lot of times is that you have lighting coming from one direction. That's one of the problems. The other thing too is that if you didn't set up your lens correctly, sometimes that flash the shadow of the lens would be captured in the image. So this pretty much eliminates all those problems. Now, when I'm shooting macro of bugs like in my backyard or just to have fun to really satisfy my creative needs, one of the things that I'm doing is that I generally shoot macro with available light. And the problem with that is when you do that, when you're trying to do macro, you're extending the lens out further, so less light already hits the sensor. Your camera, if you're using some auto mode, will automatically compensate for that, which is not a problem. But what you do lose is the depth of field. So even though you may have set something at f12 or f8 or whatever that may be, you do lose a lot because you're doing macro photography. So to compensate for that, a lot of times when I'm doing just with available light, even in broad daylight, I will bring the ISO up really high in the 1000 ranges for me to bring up the f-stop so that I can shoot with a higher depth of field. These light help solve that problem. And then as I mentioned, the modeling light helps me focus on the subject, right? So I don't have to worry about that. I can shoot in a lower lighting condition. But with these lights, what I can do is keep my ISO low, use the modeling light to focus on the subject, and still shoot with a high f-stop without increasing my ISO. And that's one of the big things that these flash allows me to do compared to just doing macro photography using just available light. And I find these are a really useful and capable tools. Now, the other thing too is that you see this mounting on this speed ring like this. You can mount up to 6 of them total if you want to do that, and you can set them up in different groups. You can go up to like group E, so that means you can only do 5 groups on 6 flashes, but most of the time you're not going to really need like 5 groups. You'll probably be doing in like 2, maybe 3 at the very most to create some type of gradient. But so far in testing and reviewing this Godox ME12 Macro Flash Kit I really love these flash and what it can do. And I mean, let me put it this way. I've been buying Godox products for years. I've been using them in my professional work. This just affirmed that they're really moving this whole thing in the right direction, and I really like what they have done with these macro flash. So if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Give this a like, subscribe, and hit on the bell if you're new. And remember, in art we trust.